Welcome to Mother, the show where we can explore our inner mothers to actualize our greatest selves. Through interviews with incredible guests, live coaching sessions, and my own experiences, we're going to dive deep into embracing feminine values and reparenting ourselves. So be prepared to show up, hold space, and be mothered in a way you never have before, but have always needed. It's time to rewrite the mother code. Hi, and welcome to Mother, Rewriting the Mother Code with me, Dr. Gertrude Lyons. I am so excited to have my guest today, Lily Geiger, be on the podcast. And this is a thrill for me on many levels. But first, I want to just let her say hi, and then I'll say a little bit about her, and we'll go from there.
Hi, and thanks so much for having me, Gertrude. I've been equally as excited, if not more, to talk to you today. So thanks for having me.
Woohoo. All right. Well, let me just share a few highlights about Lily. So Lily is an entrepreneur. She started her own business, Figlia, which is a zero alcohol aperitivo, my favorite on the market. And I'm not just saying that because I like her. It really is. It's fantastic. But her journey, the story, I've just been continuously inspired by everything that's happening around you, this brand. And I will also mention that she's one of my daughter Morgan's besties. And I've gotten to know her over the years and have a huge appreciation for you and what you're doing. And it's a really big deal. So thank you. Because it matters. And yes, it's not, there's a lot of levels to why it matters and, what you're doing. But why don't we just kind of jump in with, if you don't mind, just kind of sharing your story, how you got to be doing this and the founder and CEO of Figlia.
Yeah. So, I basically started my career right after college working in beauty, which was kind of funny because it's so opposite of what I do now, I feel like. But basically, in the first 2 years of my career post-grad, learned how to really, I think, grow a lot of small brands, nurture them, gain this traction with community, a lot of in real life activations, retail moments. So kind of just got all aspects of what it was like to have a small brand and to be a part of that community. And then, during COVID, I realized that all habits were changing. People were developing new habits, especially when it, related to drinking. I think people really just wanted a ritual at the end of the night. And I think that because of that, people were drinking a lot more than they were used to, or a lot more than they would have liked. And definitely came to a part of my career where I wanted to do something that I was passionate about, but wasn't really sure, if I'm going to do something on my own, you really have to care about it. You really have to believe in it. I think I realized that this was the only thing that I cared about this much. And from coming from a background of growing up with an alcoholic parent, my dad was an alcoholic for most of my life that I can remember. And just realizing how many, options were not available to those who didn't drink at the time. I think that, seeing how many items are on the shelf from this space is just so powerful. So many brands, awesome brands that really care about this space that emerged at that time. That just didn't exist at the time. You would go to a restaurant, and if you were a non-drinker, you were you were ordering a soft drink, or you're ordering sparkling water with orange juice, or just something mixed with fruit juice that just tasted like super juvenile, and it wasn't very sophisticated. You didn't feel a part of the community in that way. You kind of felt like, oh, I'm drinking a mocktail. It's lesser than, it's not as great. It's on the back of the menu. It's, so came to that time in my life and started Figlia and pulled it together pretty quickly, I will say, launched by the end of April of 2021.
That's so interesting, Lily, because I would have sworn you started this before COVID. Time
crazy.
is so
it feels like it's
strange.
been for forever. I know.
Yeah. Not like, oh, you've been doing this forever, but wow, it's just coming up on 2 years. Okay. Amazing. Yeah. So we're going to look at a number of avenues, regarding this, but I've seen it written, and when you share the story about growing up with your dad who actually passed away, right? If it's okay to mention that, as a result of, complications with alcoholism, that in addition to wanting to provide something, you also are giving back proceeds. right? If you want to share a little bit about that
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. So when I started kind of thinking about what this brand would mean to people, I think that the story it really is just the basis of what this is all, what
Mm-hmm.
it comes from. There was no way in which we weren't going to find a community to give back to, especially, when it comes to addiction. So Partnership to End Addiction felt like the right organization. They were so kind, so enthusiastic to work with us. So basically, formed this relationship with them where we not only give proceeds with every purchase of Figlia to Partnership to End Addiction, but we've already had, friends and family members of Figlia run the marathon and raise money for Partnership to End Addiction, or every year, when it comes to like Alcohol Awareness Month, I always raise money for Partnership to End Addiction. Or on the anniversary of my father passing, which is the day after my birthday, I
Mm.
always try to, raise money as well. So I think that that's been really a core part of the ethos of our brand. And on top of that, we're also members of 1% for the Planet. So a lot of brands are, and it's really great. It's a great way to, find these organizations that all have some sustainability element to it. And we actually found an organization called Harlem Grown based in New York City. And the founder was talking to me when I met him in person. He was saying that he actually struggled with addiction himself. And this is what helped him get out of that. So it all kind of ties together, and it's all part of this bigger meaning that I think that I wouldn't be able to do this without that. So yeah.
Well, and I want to mention that because, we measure success in a lot of different ways, right? And in our culture, it's more about, is the brand successful? Are you making money? Is it,
right.
Are you doing this to like get bought out? It's all like so much about that. And I'm all for that as a component, right? But what you're talking about is success in helping people and caring and having, a brand that, not only making a positive difference in the people who are buying it and drinking it, but, beyond that and the ripple effects. And that's just naming a couple. I also wanted to, hear you talk about or, acknowledge you're a young woman starting a brand, and that is a thing, in itself. So can you share a bit about what it's like being a young woman, launching a brand and into the world and this market?
Yeah, I think that it's definitely interesting doing this as a young woman. Like I said, I had never started a business before. I can't say that many of my peers are also doing what I'm doing right now. So it's also very isolating. You know what I mean? I'm like, who do I turn to that,
Lily,
is kind
but
of
you're
on the same
underestimated. You're
page?
26. You started this 2 years ago when you were 24. And it's not the typical path. At least like right out of college, right? Like it's maybe down the line, maybe after they've
it felt like
that's a big leap.
Yeah, it was a big leap. I think that I definitely would have felt more scared to do it if I didn't have that fire inside of me from my background of just wanting this to be in the world, wanting this to be something that people can turn to, and also a community where we're talking about it. Because honestly, like I don't know of any other brands that are really talking about addiction, honestly. And a lot of the people that I think I've heard from or read articles about or podcasts, it's a lot about the addict themselves. And I think that at first I was really hesitant to talk about my experience because I was like, is it, if I'm not the addict, can I speak so honestly about this?
Yeah.
And then I kind of had a second to myself where I was like, this is my experience. Like, I think that if there's anything that we know about this disease is that it's a family disease. Like it infects everyone. It's so crippling for everyone. So that's what gave me, I think, the confidence to be able to share my own story so publicly, because I've never done that before in my life. I'd never
so vulnerable. Oh my goodness, right?
And it's really crazy how much I find out about myself as I do this. And even, you were talking about like different metrics of success. I totally feel that. Whereas like, we have zero outside funding, we're bootstrapping. Even then we've made a good amount of money and we're pretty well known. And I think that we've made it as far as we possibly could with the money we've used and the people that were the manpower, the woman power, I should say, actually, because we're all female backed brand. But I still just, the things that are the most meaningful to me is when people reach out and they're like, wow, thank you for sharing your story. I have never shared this before, but, hearing you talk so openly about it has made me feel comfortable talking about that. So that's really all that I care about. Like if this all failed tomorrow, which I don't think it will, obviously, this has all been enough for me. Like it's been enough. Like it's been everything. So
isn't that
I'm really
beautiful? Like how many people, can say that, or even, and I'm not saying I'm going to do this as a growth and development activity, right? Like my coach told me I should start a business that will,
right.
help me, work on heal family wounds, around
Right.
alcoholism, and look at myself like, but I think
Yeah.
we do have those inklings inside, right? We might not be able to name it, it wasn't like, I mean, it was the fire that you said, but it wasn't because you expected, it was just you cared and you wanted to like do something with that caring. Right.
Right. I mean, there was no guarantee that it's going to work out. No one was like, hey, do it. This is your time to do it. Everyone's like, are you sure? Like, what even is a non-alcoholic like
Aperitivo.
mocktail, aperitivo? Like, no one even knew what it meant. And now it's a bigger space. But at that time, it was
Mhm.
like kind of at the beginning of it where everyone was looking at me like I was crazy. And so I just had to keep moving forward with this belief that I had. I'm like, I believe in
Mhm.
this. And, thank God it worked out. But yeah, it was not anything that I for sure knew would be what it is now. Just crazy.
Well, I'm going to underline that again, like what a difference that makes when we have a, more of a bigger vision, right? And not like just, again, we're just trained to be so goal oriented, right? Like, ooh, like I'm going to start a business. Oh, I care about this, but will it make money? And,
Right.
and everything's gotta, drive us toward that aspect. But when the vision's bigger, you still want to grow the brand and do it, but
Yeah.
not just to meet that financial goal. Like the financial goal has like bigger ramifications, like, oh, we can get, more of a message out, we can help more people, and
Totally.
how amazing is that. So I think I just want to keep underlining that, because I think, to me, I talk a lot on the show about masculine, feminine, and kind of balancing the yin and the yang, and we're in a very yang culture and environment where it's about the like logical process and having it proven, and for sure business plan, and like those things
Yeah.
are good, but in support, when it's then in support of the feminine aspect of it, then those things kind of take their proper place, when they're all that it's about, and it doesn't mean you still might not like do well with that goal. You
Right.
created a really lovely product, and it could have done fine. It's
Yeah.
not, you don't do that caring part, like, oh, maybe if I care about it, then I'll make money,
Right. It's
It's
yeah,
so crazy.
it's definitely a labor of love. And I think that there are, the thing now is there are so many other brands out there right now that have millions in backing, and they've reached, this many, people with marketing and stuff. And we don't have the money to do that right now. I think that we, plan to scale and plan to fundraise and plan to keep up with
Mhm.
that. But what's really awesome is that we got to know our brand. Like we really
Yeah.
got to know. We got to know our product. We got to know our people. We got to know the people we've been working with, every vendor, every person. Like I feel like I've actually spoken to and know their name and have like shaken their hand
Mhm.
if or COVID, and I obviously
Yeah.
couldn't do that. Every most store owners we've spoken to, like we really got to know people. And I don't think many brands can say that when you grow that quickly. So
Mhm.
I think that also kind of goes, that's all baked into the community that we're trying to build when we do talk about addiction and, speak honestly about at least my experience with addiction. And what I've realized is also when I am speaking to some random label vendor or box vendor or bottle or ingredient, we'll tell them the story right off the bat when we're explaining what the brand is. And they'll be like, oh, wow, me too. I actually grew up with an alcoholic parent myself, or I was battling with addiction, and like how powerful is that also that,
Mhm.
they would have probably never shared that with anyone had we not opened up first. So it's like you
Right.
give that invitation to talk about that stuff, and it literally manifests in every sense of the brand and every like small vein that is the makeup of this. So it's just so awesome.
I love
That's really
that.
like all I care about. So
Yeah, I teared up again as you said that, because that's so beautiful, because, and then you don't know the ripple effects from there, right? And not like you have
right.
to, but if they felt a space to open up there, who knows, where that might lead or take them, on that journey. And I know I've talked on the show and have done a segment on dry January. And so obviously my audience knows that, my husband and I chose to stop drinking when, well, it's probably been 30 years now, back before,
Right.
way back when you didn't even call it like getting sober. It was just like not drinking anymore. Right.
Right.
And you kind of assumed if you didn't drink, that just must have meant you were an alcoholic,
Right.
so it was one or the other, right? You were drinking, and it's definitely one of the best choices we ever made I think individually, but also as a couple, to remove something. And, I will admit that when we first did it and I was like, oh my God, this is like, well, first it was really hard. Don't get me wrong. Like
Right.
I did it as an experiment. Like, oh, I wonder what that would be like. I knew somebody who was doing that. And I'm like, I don't think that'll be a big deal. And no, it was a big deal. It was a big
Right.
deal to show up at family events and not drink anything. And I was in my 20s, and, to like go out socializing. Like, it was at the very first time I went out, I literally like came home and got sick. Right. Like it was a family. We were on a family trip with my husband's side of the family, and the typical thing we would do when we would go be with family was drink a lot, and
Right.
it's how you medicate and, kind of deal
Yep.
with family stuff sometimes. And after that first night, I literally was in bed for the rest of the weekend. I was like, oh, I guess this is like a bigger deal than I thought, and
Right.
I love that there is, obviously we want it to be so much more, but there is the sober curious and the sober movements and thinking more about like even our health or consciousness. But it was one of those things we decided like, well, we could like, limit or this, but it's just, to me, it's too powerful of a substance. Like it has
Yeah.
just very powerful energy, and we kind of don't really treat it with the respect that it has, or that I think it needs. And we're just enculturated. So, but I was a little righteous about it at first, and like, everyone should do this. Da, da, da. Well, not everyone wants to.
Right.
And they're not bad people because, they're not making the choice I am. So I had to get more comfortable with it and be okay. And then,
Yeah.
then suddenly like people around me weren't making a big deal out of it either. So anything that normalizes it makes it like, oh, this is another choice. Like, okay, like, and so it doesn't have to feel so all or nothing because of the pressure to drink, and not just like have a glass of wine, but like if I'm drinking, I got to get drunk or whatever, and it's
Yeah.
just so damaging to our poor little bodies. But that's, a whole
I
nother
know. I
thing.
mean,
But
I
it's,
think once you realize how great you feel, if you, go a month or even, a little over that, I think you really start to feel just like, you're sleeping better, you look better, you feel better. It's hard to go back, and it's hard, you want to tell your friends, oh my God, I did this and I feel incredible, without being judgmental or,
right.
because, like you're saying, at that time when you were, you didn't want to drink anymore. That's, I feel like, where I'm at right now, where I do have an occasional glass of wine, but that's mostly for the taste. And I think that I say this all the time, like if someone can come up with a really great non-alcoholic tasting wine, then I'm happy to give up wine because I'm just
Mm-hmm.
doing it for the taste. I'm not like, oh, I want to get wasted tonight. And I think that I just feel like a million times better when I don't do it. And I
Yeah.
notice that, let's say I do have that glass of wine and my body's not used to having it, I'll just have like so much anxiety. I won't sleep well. And I'll be like, why did I do that? Why did I do that? Why did I do that? But, it's really such a great thing for you. But again, like I try not to, like you're saying, be judgmental about it
Yeah.
I don't try to, get my friends to do it if they don't seem like they want to, but a lot of them
Right.
honestly are open to it, which is really great.
I know.
And
Isn't that, I love that.
yeah, it's awesome.
Hi, I'm so excited to share with you my 2024 Spring Equinox Self-Mothering Retreat that's happening this March 2024. And I would love for you not only to consider it, but to attend. But in considering it, hey, just knowing that you would be leaving cold weather, if that's the space that you're in, and coming down to just magnificently beautiful, warm, nourishing place of Zihuatanejo, Mexico. Zihuatanejo meaning land of the goddess women, and coming to really take time for yourself. Okay. And that I am learning more and more isn't just a nice thing to do or something extravagant or something selfish. It's essential. And I really want you to take it seriously, to consider, just think about what would it take for me to go. It's a 5.5-day retreat, getting from where you are, getting there, landing there, and then being in a space that is all about you. It's all about nourishing you. It's all about tuning into you, using everything around us, the nature, the food, the beautiful people, the rituals, ceremonies, I bring it, we really bring it. And we go deeper and deeper as the days go on, and we release, we let go, we bring in what is nourishing, what is empowering, what is that space of just really divine feminine energy. And we do it in the community of women. It's not for everyone. I will be honest, if the idea of leaving and not making it work, or it's just too hard, not for you. If the idea of, spending that amount of time inwardly focused and going to that level of self-awareness doesn't sound like something you're willing to do or put the time and energy into, then it's not for you. And it's good to know that, right? So this is for people who are serious about what it means to mother themselves, what it means to take time for ourselves, and that gift and what that gift can bring to us. It was originally right after my fall retreat. It filled right up. But now some people, it turns out, are not able to come. So I do have a handful of openings. And if you're listening to this and you're willing to take that step, please reach out to me. We can do a discovery call, or you can put a deposit down. I would love that. And you can do that by going to my website, www.drgertrudelyons, DrGertrudelyons.com. Go to events, and there you go. It'll all be there. There's a beautiful page there for you to explore. I look forward to hearing from you and then seeing you on my spring retreat. Well, and I know you said this at the beginning, and I mean, I went years and years where, there weren't options, right? It was, oh, you want something alcoholic? You have soda pop, or iced tea, or juice, and that was kind of, and, every now and then I would think to ask, like, oh, could I have that drink without alcohol? Like a
virgin
colada or something, virgin. Yeah. So you could do that, but to then have things that are so specifically made. And then I think there was, I've tried a lot, I've tried a lot of them.
Yeah.
And some of them, because alcohol is an acquired taste, which, is a thing. Like, it doesn't really initially, like, I don't know if there's anyone who would say they tasted their first anything alcoholic and were like, yum, this is like, so tasty.
Incredible. Yeah.
We acclimate to it, right? Where I feel like a lot of the ones I would try, like, felt like they had to be like super weird, or like, ooh, like this is, I'm going to have to get used to this kind of thing. Right. Yeah. And I didn't think yours. That's why I loved yours, because it's something that has, and obviously not everybody likes every flavor, but it's, anything that's put in front of them. But I've tried a lot of things, and it feels like I'm drinking a mature drink. I did wear, in case you're wondering, I did wear red today for
the Figlia
color, the brand color.
I think you're right. I mean, it's really interesting, because when I was looking into the brands that were out there, a lot of them were non-alcoholic spirits. So they were like non-alcoholic gin, non-alcoholic whiskey, non-alcoholic tequila, and gin. That to me doesn't really, I mean, no ill will or anything against those brands, but I just think that, it's, to me, a little counterintuitive. Like you're saying, who really likes the taste of those things? Like, that's the point of a shot, right? When you're just trying to get a buzz on, you're taking the shots, so you don't really have to sip on it, because like, But I think that was something that really, I did not want to mimic the taste of alcohol. Like, that was super important to me, because I'm coming from a standpoint of someone who was very close to someone who was battling with addiction. I know how hard it is if you're looking to not drink because you actively every day are trying so hard not to, and then you take a sip of a non-alcoholic vodka. That's going to just be in your head, just be like, what's going on? Like, it's not helpful.
I would think it would trigger it
would trigger someone probably to want to drink. And that's the same with a non-alcoholic beer. It tastes like beer. So I think for us, it was like, okay, what can we find that is already on its own, even in its truest alcoholic state, is meant to be savored? And that reminded me of like a Campari or Aperol. Like, it's a concentrate. So you're not going to drink a tall glass of Campari ever. So if you think of that, and then on top of that, finding a way to make it taste sophisticated, but not taste alcoholic, if that makes sense.
That was the word I was looking for, sophisticated. It's very sophisticated. Can you share a little bit? Like, I know I like to touch all the arenas, but I think it's so interesting. Like, how, like, did you have a flavor in mind? Like, was there something, like, is there anything specifically regarding the, like, flavors that you brought together that mean something to you, or, how did that come about? I know
Yeah.
you told me you tried a lot of things, but there had to have been something like, I wanted it to, to evoke
Yeah.
this, or, taste a little bit like this, or anything like that.
I definitely had flavors that I had liked from things I
Mm-hmm.
had tried, whether they were alcoholic or non-alcoholic. But I think most importantly, I wanted it to taste sophisticated. So I was trying to work with extracts that would kind of give it that bite that wasn't totally, okay, this tastes alcoholic, or trying to find the perfect, I guess, middle ground of it doesn't taste alcoholic, but it doesn't taste like juice. So given that, that's kind of where we found like ginseng and stuff like that to kind of give it that bite,
Mm.
and ginger, stuff like that. But for some of the other botanical extracts, I really like rose. I really liked rosemary. I really liked elderflower,
Yeah.
chamomile. Those are the things that in my everyday life, like I love different teas and, different things. I think just growing up, my mom would make me. And so I think I also spoke to people that were chefs or people that
Mm.
were working behind a bar that, also had a more extensive taste palette than even I felt like I had. So, would have them try and give me their feedback. So it was also just like me having everyone try it. Because I think that there's also a middle ground of, okay, this can't just be for the people with the most sophisticated taste palette in the world. Like,
Yeah.
and this also can't just be like, Tropicana. So how do we find something that will taste sophisticated, but also we think everyone will be able to drink? Like even
Right.
a
It has
kid could
like a little bit of
and not
that
be like,
yum.
you know.
Right. Right. No,
So that was kind of, yeah.
and I think that was achieved. And, just like how fun to I think you said like all the different like variations that you tried until it felt like,
So
was that
many.
you that was kind of like, this is it?
Yeah.
Like, how did you actually, because it seems like something you would kind of keep tweaking, you
Yeah, we did
like,
so
oh,
many times. And it was funny because it was during COVID, so we could only mail these to each other. The formulation specialist that we were working with was in LA, and they were mailing it to me. And I spent some of COVID in, LA. I spent some of COVID in New York. I spent some of COVID in the Berkshires, or I was in Aspen for a little bit. So I was like having them like track me, and we would like send, they would send the different variations. Then I would write my notes down, and then we'd get on a call, and I'd be like, and then finally, once COVID was subsiding a bit, I went in person with one of the gals that works with me, and we did kind of like the final tasting. And one of the other big things was the color, because some of these non-alcoholic spirits are kind of murky and they might taste good, but no one wants to, like, that also makes you feel kind of isolated because everyone's like, what
mm-hmm.
is that? What are you drinking? Like, ew. So we were like, we want it to be vibrant, red. We want it to be able to, packaging wise, also stand next to any spirit on a bar cart and feel like it's inclusive of that, and feel like it stands on its own, and branding wise it can be taken seriously. So that was definitely a part of that as well.
Yeah. No, you did a great job with that. Whatever experience you got, I don't think it was just the couple years experience you had. I think this is a creative aspect for you. I think there's a genuine gift, in that regard, because, every piece of it is so thoughtful and beautiful. There was something, oh shoot, that when we were talking about like the making of it, the formulation. Oh, that was it. I think you've been a little shy talking about the actual like success that you have had. And I want to give you an opportunity to brag a little bit. I mean, I can name some things, but I don't have the whole list. But, this is an exercise in, you sharing and feeling proud of what you're doing. But some of the press that you've gotten, some of the accolades, where can you, what are some of the places shelves that it sits on, and just a little bit of that.
So I will say it's been awesome that last year I think at this time of last year, we were at maybe 100 stockists. So that means just stores, restaurants, bars that serve/sell us. And now
First
we're
of all,
almost
that was a year. Wait, hang on before you get to that next number. So a year after you started, you were in 100 stores. Like, I don't think we should
and we didn't
minimize
launch
that.
with that. So we started two people, one and a half. Riley, who works with me, she has her own agency, so she contracts for us. But what's really awesome is that we basically started with no wholesale accounts, and people were reaching out to us. They were like, hey, we want to sell you, we want to serve you. So by, I guess, this time last year, we were at 100 stores, and now we're almost at 400. And that's, stores, restaurants, bars, coffee shops. Like, that's the beauty of non-alcoholic too, is you can serve it in a clothing
anywhere.
store.
Yeah.
You can sell it at a clothing store if you want.
You don't have to have a license
So
to sell it.
yeah, which is great for us because I'd like for it to be, everywhere. I want everyone to have the option to have it. So yeah, and since, we've been so lucky to have such great press, we've been in Vogue, New York Times, Vanity Fair, Forbes, like, Wall Street Journal, it really, you name
And
it.
just
And that
a few,
just a few
maybe
tiny little,
like tiny little
local newsletters.
publications. Yeah. Like
Yeah, yeah.
the, the neighborhood
But that's
newsletter, right?
yeah, but it's been great. Like it's been so crazy to see it all just fall into place like
Mhm.
this and to see people really enjoy it. I think when we were written up in Wirecutter, I couldn't even believe like she was basically, in other words, just saying that like she'd never tasted anything like us before. Or I don't even remember
Mm.
what her exact words were, but it was just like it was so meaningful to see that because I don't know. I guess I just didn't really know that we could ever amount to this when I first started it. And it does help that I have such a great team. And that's definitely how we've gotten here, but it was really cool to see that. And
Yeah.
also, we're in restaurants that range from Blue Hill Farm to French Laundry
Oh,
in
and a
stores.
couple like minor
Foxtrot.
restaurants.
Yeah, yeah, just tiny little local spots again.
The
So
hot dog
it's
stand next door,
yeah,
right?
yeah. But that's
Well,
and
and let's
obviously
not leave out that you're going to be at the Morgan Lyons Mitch Durama wedding and
right.
in Ziwa.
That's
You're
kind of our
international
biggest
in
event.
Ziwa
Yeah.
now,
We're taking
Mexico.
it international exclusively for the biggest event of the year,
Right.
obviously. Second to Morgan's second wedding. That will be the second biggest event of the
Then
year. Um,
Chicago, right?
yeah. But yeah, I think that, we've put in the work, but you just that press, like you gotta really be great to do that, I think, taste wise. And so
Hmm.
that's what I think really made me realize, okay, we're doing something right here. And that's
Yeah,
when we also kind of decided, I think midway through last year to come out with a can. So we have two products now,
that's
which you
right.
know.
I
Yeah.
do. I love them
Yeah.
both.
Yeah.
So if you think about looking ahead now, like, wow, I didn't think we'd be here. And, who knew? I knew
Yeah.
I liked it. I know it has this like huge meaning to me. I'm not just doing it, do a cool thing, but really make a difference. What do you see ahead? Like, what are your thoughts about where you'd like it? Well, and I'm going to put this in the context of, my work with rewriting the mother code, which is, underlines that we all mother, we might
Right.
choose to mother children, but we mother a career, a product, relationships, pets and, dreams. So all along that way. So you gave birth to this and, you conceived, created, gave birth to it. And now you're raising it. And that, is a whole other uh, experience. So
Yeah.
if you're willing to share, not like you have to give away secrets or anything, but just anything that
No.
you're thinking about what that might look like.
Yeah, well, I feel like I'm mothering this child with like my sister wives, like my village. I
Yeah.
definitely could not do it without them, so that's also worth saying.
Yeah.
But
Here, here.
I so shout out to Vivian and Riley.
Hmm.
But I definitely think that what we're looking at now is, we have been bootstrapping. We've really like squeezed all the juice out of what we can, and we're really, I think, have done such a great job. But I think we want to scale with a lot of our other competitors. So I think we'll be looking to fundraise soon. And on top of that, we want to have more products, more options for people. I think we're huge on community, more in person events, more in-person tastings, meeting more people, talking to more people, more conversation. Like that's really what we're all about. So I think
Sure.
that this new year will bring a lot of that. So
No,
yeah.
I love that. I think that feels imminently possible. And, I want to encourage you to like dream big from the perspective of like big impact, and
Yeah.
covering all the basis of what's possible, from starting, with your first child and how the family's going to grow and
Yeah.
ways, that you're going to nurture. And the other key aspect, in the rewrite the mother code model or paradigm is the most important person you need to mother is yourself. And so taking care of you, along the way is, I'm just saying that more from my own motherly space, to you. I think you've been doing great. So I just want to keep encouraging, that aspect that if it starts not being fun, then we need to look at it or, whatever your
Yeah.
metric is for like making sure this is nourishing you and taking care of you, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, already I think that what's really great about working with people that you know and you trust and you really love is just that, connection. I think just our team in general, like for Christmas, I got Riley and Vivian both card readings. And I think we're all just like energized and excited for the new year. I feel like we always check in with each other. I feel like we're always really kind to each other, even if we make a mistake. I feel like we leave a lot of room for forgiveness and respect. And so that's really like what I think has carried us this far on top of many other things, but it's definitely very important. Yeah.
Well, and I think you're doing a beautiful job laying, the foundation for creating the values and, what's meaningful as you add people, as you add, you're inviting them into your space. And that's going to be, something that they're going to be lucky to like be a part of, in addition to you being able to have more of whatever it is that you need, in that regard.
Yeah. Totally.
Well, I love all of that. So we know that if you go to French Laundry, you can get Figlia. If you're invited to the wedding, you can get it there. But otherwise, how can people learn more about the brand? Where can they generally find it? And what are some ways that's like, wow, I gotta get me some Figlia.
Yeah. So we actually, if you go on our website and you click find us on the top right corner, you can just plug in your zip code so you can see all the stores that sell you. I'm sure, I know,
perfect.
You're based out of Chicago and we are in Foxtrot in Chicago. So that's kind of like one of our biggest grocer retailers. And then we also deliver right to your door. So if you're already on the site and you just don't even want to go outside and you're feeling like back to COVID where everything was delivered to us, please go ahead and just order us online. It's the best when our boxes show up to your door. So
it sure is. They're beautiful. And I am a subscriber.
Yes.
So I'm, never without my Figlia, right?
Yeah.
So is it, you're also on Instagram, but Drink Figlia, is it drinkfiglia.com and Drink Figlia on Instagram? Okay.
And our website is drinkfiglia.com. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So Drink Figlia, I love it. So that's how we can find you. And, in Vogue magazine or, other.
Yeah, you can always, link to us through any, articles. It's great. Yeah, you can find us.
Wonderful. So the last question I always ask all my guests is, when you hear rewrite the mother code, what comes to mind? There's no wrong answer, just anything that comes to mind when you hear that.
Okay, what comes to mind, I guess, maybe is just, the expectation or I feel like society makes mothering one thing. And I feel like from the work I've seen you do and hearing you say that, it just feels like what you said, it just means so many more things. Like you mother in so many different ways. You don't actually have to have a human child to mother. So I think that that's, I guess, now, in hindsight, thinking about me starting this company or the way that I've taken care of myself in my life when I've had the absence of a parent that's supposed to be my protector and ways that I feel like that's applied in my life. Like I really feel that. So I guess that's what comes to mind. Beautiful.
I love asking that question because everybody says something that is spot on, but totally unique to them, and perfect. Yeah. And I love that because I don't think we mentioned what Figlia means because it's Italian.
Yeah, sorry. Figlia means daughter in Italian. So it definitely stems from my own personal story and experience and came to the name and it was just perfect.
Yeah, I thought it was brilliant. I love that. So I realized we hadn't said that. Well, Lily, thank you so, so much. Thank you for what you're doing, your inspiration, and I wish you just the utmost of this well-rounded success that we're talking about.
Thank you so much. And thanks for having me, Gertrude.
Absolutely.
Such a privilege.
Thank you so much for choosing yourself and taking the time to listen to this podcast. As always, please rate, review, and subscribe to Mother. Subscribe to Mother. It helps other people who need this message, aka all women, well, actually everybody, men included, find it. I'm honored to have you on this journey in mothering yourself. Remember, change is uncomfortable, but it's beautiful and it starts with us. And if you can't wait until next week's episode, follow me on Instagram and LinkedIn at Dr. Gertrude Lyons or at my website, drgertrudelyons.com. I'll see you next time.